We are back for another review of American Horror Story. This is episode 4. This is called Blood Buffet. And this was actually a really good episode. So thank y'all for watching, joining me for another review on Kyria Reviews. I am Kyria and I am going to give y'all this American Horror Story review. So in this first episode, we start off with Miss Angelica Ross, who is going to be known as the chemist in this episode. She is just moving to P-Town. She's looking for a quiet place that is private and a house that has good ventilation. The guy that we saw in the last episode that was giving the police the report or the statement, he's the one that's actually showing her the house, and he's kind of letting her know who's in the neighborhood and kind of trying to fish around and see why she's moving out there. And she lets him know that she's just going through a divorce. She's a chemist from Harvard with a PhD. So she ends up liking the house and she decides to get the house, and she sets up shop there and immediately begins to go out and scout to find people to go ahead and start testing this pill on. So she goes to the Muse and she ends up kind of watching Mickey at the bar, and she approaches him first and asks him to come back to her house. And when they're in there, you know, Mickey's just going around like tapping on stuff, and she's like, do not touch anything, come sit down, I just want to talk to you. So she begins to ask him, like, are you talented? Do you have any talents? Do you have any dreams? And he's confused at first, like, what are you talking about? Like, my dreams at night? She's like, no, are you good at anything? And he's like, well, I've written some, kind of, sort of written some stuff, but I'm not sure if I'm good or not. And she lets him know that, she gives him a little backstory. She lets him know that she used to work for the military, and they were working on creating a drug that taps into the creative part of your brain, which is located in the occipital lobe, which I believe is in the back here, like right where the spinal cord meets your skull. And what the drug does is it targets an area in the occipital lobe where creativity comes from. And she lets him know, like, you know, everyone that we know that's creative, they all agree that they don't know where the creativeness comes from. It's just there. So when you take this pill, what it does is okay, I'm gonna try to explain this the best way I can. It makes the neurons in the person's occipital lobe in the brain kind of fire off at a increased rate than they would normally if the person's just being creative without any sort of enhancements. So let's say that the creative process fires off at 10%. When you take the pill, it makes their creative neurons fire off at like 1,000%. It makes them extremely over the top creative, but it also has side effects which makes them become aggressive. So she's letting him know that they tested it on, I can't remember if she said chimps or just apes or whatever. And she was letting him know, like, the ones that it worked on were able to play, like, actual, like, music on a piano. And the ones that it did not work on just became super aggressive and was attacking the other apes that was in on the experiment. So she offers Mickey the pill first, and he ends up turning her down, and he's like, you know what, no, I don't think that's for me. Just pay me so I can go. And she says, look, before you leave, anybody that you can send here to test one of these pills out, I will give you $50 for each person that you send. So then Mickey goes to the bar. He meets up with tuberculosis Karen. They're just kind of in there talking, and he's kind of asking her, like, do you think you're talented? What about your paintings and stuff like that? And she's just like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I just want to get high. So if you have any drugs, let's just do them now. So that's what he ends up doing. He ends up pulling out something, and she ends up sniffing it off of his hand or whatever. So all the while, there's a guy on stage singing, So it gives Mickey an idea. So I guess he approaches the guy after the guy finishes performing, and he sends the guy to the chemist's house, and she ends up giving the guy one of the pills because he's a singer. So, Mickey's thinking that he has this talent. Now, we go to a bookstore where Belle Noire / Sarah Cunningham is having a book signing. She's reading a portion of her book. Not a portion, but a really small, I don't know what they call that, like, not an insert, she's just reading like maybe a page or two from her book. And she's trying to sell some of her books. And her books are really sexual in nature. They're really racy. And they're pretty much in the category of like being the romance novels. So during that time, one person ends up coming to buy her book. And afterwards, she meets with her husband. And her husband is the biggest jerk. Like, he was making me so mad. And I'm just sitting up there like, okay, if you frustrated with your marriage, that's one thing. But to take it out on her and make it seem like, oh, I just married this boring lady that dressed like a librarian. Like, he basically lets her know that he's disgusted by her books, and and it makes him angry that she writes about all of this sexual stuff but doesn't do anything sexual with him, which she has not done anything, I believe, sexual with him for the past 2 years. And, she's basically letting him know, like, look, I really want to do this. I really think that this will take off. And he's just like, no, he's just so angry with her at this point that he's not willing to support her. He's not trying to be understanding, just anything. It's just like, it's almost like he hates her. So she's like, look, well, how about we just go to this restaurant that I heard about called The Muse. I heard that you can see a really beautiful sunset from there. And he's like, why would I want to go to a homo bar with all those gay guys? Why would you invite me there? Do you want to see me, I guess, do gay stuff and stuff like that? And I'm just sitting up there like, man, whatever. I don't get that kind of mentality, but I'm just sitting up there like, she's asking you to just go up there and just probably have a drink and watch the sunset. You don't have to sit in there. You don't have to talk to nobody. Like, whatever. That's his personal choice. But goodness gracious, man. He is old. So, you know how old people kind of are. They're kind of like closed off to any change within society. So I wasn't surprised, but I guess we're just not used to seeing that kind of abrasiveness these days. Maybe like in the 90s or something, it would have been like, okay, that's normal. But just nowadays, it's so weird seeing somebody just so blatantly be like, no, I'm not going in there. There's gay people in there and stuff like that. Like, I feel like people do that, but they do that more on a one-on-one basis with their friends or with their children or something like that. Like, they're not going to voice their opinions to society. They're going to keep it within their small circle and let those people know how they feel about certain things. But they were in public, so he was just saying it. Anyway, she ends up okay, so before I get to that, he also brings up, that he's so angry with her because he feel like she's weak, she's scared, and she's boring. And he didn't notice it because the first 20 or 30 or 40 years or whatever that they were married, he was working most of the time and he really didn't have to spend time with her. But now that he is retired and spending all his time with her, he's seeing pretty much how boring of a person she is, and he hates it. Okay, you're not going to be married to somebody for no... If you're married to somebody for 20 or 30 years and you don't really know who they are, that's on you. Because that honestly means that you've been married to them for that long and you have not taken any time to get to know your partner, what they like or anything. Like, her husband was just making me so mad. Like, I want to go in on him so bad. But I'm not even going to say he's such a small part in the episode, but he was just getting on my nerves. So she ends up going to the Muse by herself. She's sitting at the bar. She's having a drink. And she meets Mickey. And she ends up sitting and talking with him for hours because he comes up and he's like, oh, I saw you. You're the lady that did the book signing at the bookstore. Like, I couldn't come in because I'm banned from there. But I saw you. Like, they kind of get into talking about writing and stuff like that. And then she asks him, she just randomly asked him, like, you know what? Do you have any cocaine? I've always wanted to try cocaine, and you look like a drug addict, no offense. And he was like, none taken. I am a drug addict. So he's like, I don't have that, but, you know, we can go in the bathroom and I have something else. So I didn't know what it was at first, but since she said it further on down the line, I'm just gonna go ahead and say I'm assuming that he gave her some meth to sniff off of his hand in the bathroom, and she's out there and she's just bouncing around, just dancing around, going crazy, and just, I guess, just enjoying whatever high that she got from that drug or whatever. But she was just like in her own little world. So she while she's dancing in the background, the guy who, the first guy that he sent to the chemist to take the pill, the singer guy, I don't know his name, so I'm gonna call him the singer guy. He comes into the bar, he's looking like his skin is kind of messed up. He just looks like he's pale, dark circles around his eyes, like he just does not look well. He comes in, he orders a Bloody Mary, and he drinks it, really fast. And then he runs to the bathroom and starts just throwing up because he cannot hold down the Bloody Mary. So he's looking in the mirror, and then he's kind of running his hand through his hair, and he notices that a clump of his hair comes out. So he's so confused. He's like, what is happening to me? So while he's going through all that, Belle comes back up to Mickey, and she's like, I don't know what you gave me, but I want more. And Mickey was like, that's not how it works. He was like, no, I'll let you get high the first time. That's going to be the best time. Every time after that, you're going to be trying to basically get back to the first time, and it's just going to be a continuous cycle. You're not going to be able to stop, so no. And I'm like, okay, he's a responsible drug addict. He gave her one, but he don't want to give her more. He wants to just make her he's like, if you continue, it's on you. if that's a thing. So he's like, I'm not giving you more of that, but I do have something that you may be interested in. And she was like, well, do you take it? And he's like, no, it's not for me, but I think it's for you. So he ends up taking her to the chemist, and I'm assuming she brings one of her books along, and she lets the chemist read a portion of her book. So they're sitting, kind of in her parlor area for maybe 30-40 minutes, and they're like, gosh, we've been sitting out here a long time. But as soon as they say that, she comes out of the back and she's like, look, I read your book. It's great. You have a lot of talent. And she begins to tell her about the pills that she has. She's like, this pill, kind of giving her a disclaimer. And she's telling her, like, the pills cause aggression. And Belle was like, honestly, I don't mind a little aggression because my husband says I'm weak and scared and all this other stuff. So according to him, I need some more aggression in my life anyway. And she's telling her, like, if I give you one of these pills, you have to agree to let me study you while you're in the process of taking the pills so that I can figure out what the effects are on people compared to how the effects were to the apes that we gave the pill to in the labs. So Belle ends up taking the pill. When she takes the pill, she goes back to her room and she looks at her computer, and it's the cursor just like kind of blinking. You know how it does when it's waiting for you to write something. And the page is blank, and she sits down and starts writing. She sits down and writes a whole book in one night. I'm talking about 40-something hundred pages. 400 and something pages, not 40 something. 400 and something pages in one night. And when she gets done, she is laughing like uncontrollably. So while she's in there just like, I guess, kind of laughing at what she had just done, because she's probably laughing because she's so surprised, like, wow, I really just did this. And her husband walks in and he's like, well, what's wrong with you? With an attitude, of course, I'm not gonna go in. So she's like, I just wrote a book. And he picks up the computer and he's like, you didn't write this. And she's like, no, I'm serious. Last night I just wrote this. And he was like, you couldn't have wrote this because it's good. And she was like, well, that's besides the point. Where were you? while all of this was going on. She was like, last night I went out, I met somebody, I smoked meth, I danced all night, and I came back and I wrote this book and I feel great. Now, where were you? I know he was probably like, what? So he ends up telling her like, look, I went to this music festival. I met this girl on the beach. I ended up, you know, doing some things with her. And then we woke up the next morning, did the same thing again. And then when and now I'm about to get dressed and go meet her at the Muse. And we're going to get a room and we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday again. And he's like, you know, like, I don't even care about telling you because this marriage is over. It's been over. So she ends up breaking a bottle on the table and slashing his throat. And she just jumps on him and just starts sucking the blood out of his throat. So when she's done, mind you, these people's just killing people and they not even wiping their face off. Like, they just showing up at Angelica Ross's door / the chemist. They just showing up at the chemist's door with just blood just all over them. So she goes to her house, blood, dried up blood still on her face. And Angelica is just sitting there with a paper and a clipboard. And she's like, okay, so how did you feel when you were killing your husband? Oh, okay. Did you feel any aggression? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Why did you feel the need to kill him? Was it the rage or was it something else? Oh, all right. Let me write that down. Like, girl, she don't care what has gone on. She is just like, look, I don't care what you went out and did. I expected it. I just need to know what's going on. Like, and she's just sitting there asking her those questions. And Belle's like, she's like, I actually didn't kill him because, you know, she said I did feel rage, but I actually killed him because it was like an unbearable thirst. And I could smell his blood pumping through his body. And I just had to, that just made me just, you know, react instinctively. Is it instinctively or instinctually? Instinctively? I believe it's instinctively. If you made it this far in the video, like my video, share my video. Be one of the subscribers that helps me get up to 25 subscribers because that is my next goal. And I am at 19 right now. And I appreciate everybody that subscribes, likes the video, shares the video, and watches this video. Thank you. So she's telling her, that, you know, she basically killed him because she could smell the blood pumping through his veins. And what she ends up doing to dispose of her husband's body, she chops him up and basically scatters him throughout the beach. And the guy that sold the chemist the house ends up finding his body parts. So, let me see. Okay, so the singer guy comes back, and he's asking for more pills because he's like, I don't know what this has done to me, but something is going on. He was like, you know, I'm not usually an angry person. I'm a Buddhist, like I'm a pacifist. I don't know what a pacifist is. If you know, let me know in the comments. And she's like, he's like, look, I need another pill. I don't know if it didn't work or something's just not right. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And she was just like, look, you have to wait 5 days until I can give you another pill. It's only been 3 days. So what I need you to do is just come back. Let me know if you're having any more issues or symptoms, but I cannot give you no more pills until 5 days have passed. And he was like, but I'm freezing cold. I'm going to die by then. I'm going to freeze to death. And she was like, man. She was like, man, you have on a windbreaker and it is October. And we are in Connecticut. If you don't go and get a bigger coat and go on about your business. So he ends up going to Lark's store. Lark is the dentist / tattoo artist played by Billy Lord. And he goes to her store and he's like, look, I'm looking for a coat. I don't have much money. And she's like, look, I have all these coats that were donated to me, so you can have one for free. I thought people were gonna buy them for Halloween, but nobody's buying them, so just go ahead and get one. So he picks one out, and we see where the signature coat with the curved shoulder pads or a shoulder line of the coat comes from, because now we see that he is actually going to be the first pale person that is going to be created from this drug, because come to find out, he is not as talented as he thought he was. He does not have any talent, or he doesn't have the talent that he thought he had. So I don't kind of know exactly how to word that and how that works, but whatever. So he goes to Lark. Okay, so he goes into the cemetery. He sees a lady out there praying, and he kind of walks up to her, and she's like, look, you look like you need help. Just come, I'll pray for you. Come pray with me. And he's just standing there like staring at her, and there's this vase of flowers that's near the headstone, and he picks up the flowers and he's looking at them, and he was like, I don't know, I guess in his mind he's like, I don't know why I want to do this, but he ends up breaking the glass against the headstone and slashing the lady's neck and drinking her blood. So he ends up walking to the chemist's house, mind you, with blood still all over his face. And it's Halloween, so he's pale. He's this tall, bald, pale guy with blood all over his face, all over his coat, his shirt. And the people that's walking down the street, you know, they're kind of dressed up for Halloween. And somebody was like, hey, man, that's a really nice costume. He just looked at her like, girl, okay. He shows up at the chemist's house, and she's like, come in. And she's like, what happened? How do you feel? And he was like, what? He was like, I don't know what's going on. I just killed somebody. He was like, I'm a vegan. I don't even eat meat. Is blood technically meat? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he like, I gotta attack a person to live. So that kind of is conflicting with his views of being a vegan. I don't know. But she's like, you are suffering from the side effects of realizing that you are not talented. You are angry at everyone else, and you just hate the world now, because now it's your reaction to you dealing with not being talented. So now you're going to be super aggressive, and this is just how it is. You're just not one of the talented people. So he's like crying, and as he's crying, he's like kind of going down to the floor, dropping down on his knees. But when she gets into telling him that he's not talented, he kind of looks up and kind of like jumps at her like he wants to attack her, and she pulls out a gun, and she's like, she's like, hit the road, get out, never come back to my house. And I'm sitting up there like, girl, you done ruined this guy's life. Like, I ain't saying let him kill you, but at the same time, it's like, will giving an untalented person the pill more than once make them more and more aggressive? Will it not open up any sort of talent in a person's brain? Because I do feel like everybody is good at something, and some people maybe don't realize what they're good at. So I'm kind of conflicted on the talent part, because I honestly feel like everybody's good at something. Now, maybe because this specifically targets artistic talent, that it messes a person up that doesn't have artistic talent. And I don't know what falls into that category. I feel like they're talking about, in this show, they're talking about like writers and music players and actors and tattoo artists and like everything that falls under fine arts. But it's like, what if you're good at building houses? What if that's your talent? What if your talent is building furniture? Okay. So 2 years later, Belle Noire starts to switch up her style. So she goes to see Lark, and they find out that they are both on the pill. And Lark shows her her teeth after she takes off the caps, and Belle's like, wow, I really have to get some of those. And Lark's like, yeah, I'll make you a pair, come on. So during that time, we find out that Belle has written 6 bestsellers for the that have been deemed bestsellers by the New York Times. And we also find out that one of her books has been turned into a mini series. So she's doing really well for herself within these first 2 years. And they both share that, you know, Belle lets her know that she killed her husband, but then she was like, I'm just kidding. And Lark was like, no, I killed my boyfriend. And that's what let her know that they were on the pill. So, this chair is squeaky. So Belle ends up going to a drag show at the Muse, and that's where she sees Austin. And Belle's just kind of sitting at the bar, but she's listening to Austin's conversation. And the other drag queens that are sitting at the table with Austin, they're kind of like picking on him a little bit, and they're like, oh, you're the ugliest drag queen, your stage name sucks. Mind you, I'm book smart. I can research. I can teach myself all kind of stuff. I can learn stuff fast. But I tell you what, I think I did not even realize that they were saying patio furniture until I started taking notes. And that was like the second or third time that I watched that episode. And like the first time I heard it, I was like, patio furniture. It literally took me hearing that like 20 or 30 times before I was like, oh, patio furniture. Even after the guy said, why do you think someone wants to think about porch furniture or something like that when you perform it? I swear I did not catch that at first. Okay. Don't judge me. So Austin ends up doing this performance, and Belle stays after. And she buys him a drink, and she goes over and she's talking to him, and she's like, you know what, you're really talented. And he goes to tell her, like, you know what, I'm actually a playwright, but this guy that I met up with when I first got here, he was helping me set some stuff up, and he was like, he had got me a place for my play to debut. He was helping me find actors, venue, all that other stuff. And he was like, but the guy just disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. And Belle was like, well, what did the guy look like? And Austin described him, and Belle was like, nope, never heard of him. But then it flashes back to her actually killing him. So he gone. He ain't coming back. So she tells him she will give him a pill, and that will help him. I don't know if she really explained everything, but she ends up offering him a pill. He's so down in the dumps because he's like, look, I've been performing in drag just to get food, just to have enough money to buy food and cigarettes. So she offers him a pill. He's like, shoot, I can't do no worse than I'm already doing. So he takes the pill and drinks, whatever little drink that they're drinking. And then he throws up, like he starts foaming at the mouth, and he actually throws up when he takes the pill. Spits it right there on the stage floor, which is just disgusting. I hate when people spit indoors. And afterwards, that's when he starts asking questions. He was like, what did you give me? And she was like, look, let's just go get some revenge. Let's get you fed. So they go to this scene where the drag queens that he was at the show with, he was sitting at the table with them, but there was a heavy set one, and her name was Crystal Decanter. So Crystal Decanter, she's sitting in the house, and the other guys are kind of complaining. They're like, we don't want to watch what you're watching. And she was like, look, if you want me to give you tips and show you how to live this life, part of that deal is you watch what I want to watch. So they're all sitting in there, and Belle and Austin show up, and Belle knocks on the door, and she just kind of walks on in, and Crystal Decanter was like, girl, if you want to get into this scene, you're gonna have to dress it up a little bit more than that. And Belle was like, oh no, I'm not one of you. And Austin walks in, or patio furniture walks in, and they like, what the heck are you doing here? And no sooner than he can get that question out, Belle just starts shooting everybody in the room. Except Crystal Decanter. Crystal Decanter got away. He hopped up she hopped up that chair, hopped out of that chair so fast, ran into that back room, locked the door. Austin tries to chase her, and he ends up not being able to get in quick enough, because by the time he kicked down the door, she was gone. But they end up sitting in the house and they just drank everybody else's blood that was still in there that Belle was able to shoot. And Crystal, you know, they sit up there, they feed on everybody, and once they get full, Austin looks at Belle and he's like, so what do we do now? And Belle was like, we going right. So I guess they go off and they write their little famous New York bestsellers, whatever. And Crystal DeCanter ends up getting away and running through the cemetery and finds this bench, I guess, in the middle of the cemetery. And I'm like, somebody just broke into your house and started shooting everybody. You ran out the back door and you decided to run through the cemetery. Like, it's the cemetery in the middle of the town or something. Like, what's up with that cemetery? It's just, it seems like it's always a place where people decide to go. Why are you running into a cemetery that's foggy as I don't know what in the middle of the night? So she ends up, she's on a bench because she's running because she thinks somebody's trying to kill her. And she's up there. She's like, oh, goodness. And she thinks she's gotten away. Bald-headed singer guy comes up behind her and was like, ugh. He was just right on her neck. And he ends up killing her. So that is the end of the episode. This was a good episode. It gave us a backstory on who made the pills. We don't know exactly what goes into it, but we kind of got to see the process of her making the pills. And this episode kind of explained the backstory of the pills. It explained how the pale people are created and what happens in what process the untalented pale people go through before they actually turn into what they turn into. Now, and we also see the process that the talented people go through as they go through as they turn into what they're going to turn into, which is like super successful. Now, the first time I watched this episode, I fell asleep when it was supposed to come out, and I woke up in the middle of the night. So I was like, oh shoot, I ain't get to watch American Horror Story. Let me put it on. And I ended up putting it on, and then I dozed off towards the end of the episode. But I watch it on Hulu. So on Hulu, if you watching something and you fall asleep and it goes off, something else comes on. So for some reason, that show about the mermaids and stuff, Siren, came on right after it went off. And I woke up while Siren was playing because I had dozed off for like a few minutes, but then I woke up again. And when I woke up, I was like, how much did I miss? I was like, I don't recognize nobody up here. Like, what part of the story is this? So when I went to kind of press the remote and kind of rewind it back, I saw that it wasn't even American Horror Story. I was like, what in the world? So come on, Hulu, y'all really messed me up. But I guess y'all say, girl, stay up while you're watching the show. That's why I had to watch it 2 or 3 times, because I wanted to watch it in its entirety, and then I had to go back and rewatch it so I can make my notes, because sometimes I'll be having to watch these shows while I'm at work and I'm doing people hair, so I'm kind of playing it on the side and trying to catch what I can catch, so then I have to go back and make notes. But I hope y'all enjoyed this review. Again, like my video, help me make it up to 25 subscribers. That is my first major goal for YouTube. I feel like, how can 25 be major? But I mean, shoot, when you struggling trying to crawl from 0 to 25 and it's taking like weeks and weeks, then it is a major goal. It's becoming a long-term goal, okay? Because it's taking me a minute. But I'm patient. So I hope y'all enjoyed this review. I'm about to go ahead and try to upload this. I hope it does not take hours, which I'm sure it will, but whatever. Y'all have a good night, and I will be seeing y'all tomorrow for when I review Love After Lockup. I'm going to be reviewing that tomorrow night going into Saturday. So it should be up on Saturday. So that's my goal for Love After Lockup. All right, good night, y'all.